You know, when they let, I think the real number is 15, 16 million people into our country, when they do that, we got a lot of work to do. The Republican platform promises to launch the largest deportation operation in the history of our country.
Newly elected President of the United States, Donald Trump, has frequently made demeaning statements about undocumented immigrants, claiming that they pollute the blood of the nation.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America.
He also assured his supporters that he would revive the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a law widely regarded as outdated and infamous for its last significant use, detaining Japanese Americans in internment camps during World War II. After his election, Trump announced his plan to carry out a mass deportation program targeting undocumented immigrants. This initiative would be enacted through a declaration of a national emergency, granting him the authority to employ military measures. The issue of mass deportation was a cornerstone of Trump's campaign during the election, and in his first term, he had previously declared a national emergency to redirect funds from the Pentagon to finance the construction of a border wall with Mexico. As part of these efforts, Trump assembled a cabinet filled with figures known for their hardline stances on immigration. One notable move was appointing Tom Homan, the former head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as the so-called border czar. During his speech at the Republican National Convention in July 2024, Homan criticized President Biden, insinuating that Biden's administration sent signals encouraging millions of undocumented immigrants to believe they could live freely in the United States. Trump's proposed use of military strategies to address immigration sparked significant controversy. Numerous commentators have described these policies as overtly racist, arguing that the administration's actions not only intensified immigration enforcement, but also fostered a pervasive atmosphere of fear. Should such intimidation persist, many individuals might feel compelled to leave the United States entirely. The United States has long stood as one of the primary destinations for immigrants worldwide, significantly surpassing the combined numbers of countries like Germany, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and the United Kingdom. According to data from Migration Policy, despite the U.S. accounting for only about 5% of the global population, nearly 20% of all international migrants have chosen to settle in the country. By 2022, the number of immigrants in the U.S. had reached an all-time high of approximately 46.2 million. Immigrants represented 13.9% of the total U.S. population, a figure slightly higher than the 13.7% recorded in 2019, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, but still below the historic peak of 14.8% in 1890. Migration Policy also reported that as of 2022, roughly 10.7 million U.S. residents were born in Mexico, making them the largest immigrant group in the country. However, this number marked a decline of about 1 million since 2010. Mexican immigrants comprise 23% of the total immigrant population in the U.S. in 2022, down from 29% in 2010. Beyond Mexico, India, and China were also major contributors to the U.S. immigrant population. When combining immigrants and their U.S.-born children, their total reached an estimated 90.8 million people in 2023, representing 27% of the nation's civilian non-institutional population. This reflects an increase of about 14.7 million, or 20%, compared to 2010. The influx of immigrants to the United States is not a recent phenomenon. It has been ongoing since the late 1800s, when many left their homelands due to crop failures, land shortages, unemployment, heavy taxation, and famine. Some came to the U.S. in search of better economic opportunities, while others sought freedom or refuge from political and religious persecution. Between 1870 and 1900 alone, approximately 12 million immigrants arrived in the United States. As of 2022, migration policy data highlights that the U.S. states with the highest immigrant populations were California, 10.4 million, Texas, 5.2 million, Florida, 4.8 million, New York, 4.5 million, and New Jersey, 2.2 million. In terms of percentage of the total population, immigrants represented the largest shares in California, 27%, New Jersey, 24%, New York, 23%, Florida, 22%, and Nevada, 19%. Texas, the state with the second largest immigrant population in the United States, was originally home to several Native American tribes. The first European immigrants arrived in the 1600s, during the French and Spanish colonization of the region. In the 1820s, financial incentives offered by the Mexican government attracted a significant wave of immigrants to Texas, many from the southern United States where slavery was prevalent. This trend continued until Texas gained independence from Spain. The influx of both legal and undocumented immigrants from the southern U.S. eventually led to political instability, prompting Texas to declare independence from Mexico in 1836. It became the Republic of Texas and was annexed by the United States in 1846, primarily to continue the institution of slavery. As a result of Texas separating from Mexico and joining the U.S., many Mexican Americans remained in their homes, finding themselves living in two nations. This historical shift gave rise to a well-known saying among Mexican Americans: "We didn't cross the border crossed us." The current border of Texas was not established until the Compromise of 1850. From that point onward, many immigrants who came to Texas entered illegally or without documentation, as immigration from Mexico became restricted after Texas achieved statehood. According to data from migration policy, Texas has the second largest immigrant population in the U.S. and ranks second in the number of Mexican immigrants nationwide. The American Immigration Council reports that 1 out of every 6 Texas residents is an immigrant, and 15% of native-born U.S. citizens in Texas have at least one immigrant parent. As of 2015, over 1/3 of all immigrants in Texas were naturalized U.S. citizens. In recent years, the growth of the immigrant population in Texas and the U.S. as a whole has slowed. Additionally, more new immigrants are of Asian descent compared to previous generations. Meanwhile, the population of Mexican immigrants in the state has decreased by 500,000 since the beginning of the decade. More recently, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, claimed to have reduced undocumented border crossings into the state by 85%. Data from official U.S. government websites reveals that May 2019 marked the peak of undocumented immigrant apprehensions in Texas. On average, more than 1,600 people were detained each day during that month, a sharp increase compared to the 560 daily apprehensions recorded in May 2018. According to the official U.S. government site, hundreds of thousands of families and unaccompanied children from Central America have migrated to the southwestern border. These individuals are often driven by the threat of violence and severe economic hardships in their home countries. They are lured by the promise of better opportunities, fueled by the robust growth of the U.S. economy, and manipulated by smugglers who spread false claims that bringing children along will guarantee their ability to stay in the United States. In past decades, the U.S. government established border patrol stations along the southwest border to efficiently process and deport adult men from Mexico, who historically represented the primary demographic of those apprehended. However, migration patterns have shifted, with families and children now making up a significant portion of border crossings. Texas's geographical location makes it a major entry point for undocumented immigrants. Situated along the Gulf Coast and sharing a direct border with Mexico, Texas remains one of the most accessible routes for those fleeing Central America. Historically part of Mexico itself, the state continues to be a top destination for migrants from the region. While the majority of undocumented immigrants still originate from Mexico and Central America, there has been a growing number of arrivals from countries such as China, Thailand, and other parts of Asia. Additionally, a smaller yet notable portion comes from Europe, highlighting the increasingly diverse origins of those seeking entry into the United States. For undocumented immigrants, Texas is a nearby refuge, a place to escape hardships and pursue a better life. However, for many native Texans, these immigrants are often viewed as a source of inconvenience. According to Cato.org, one of the critical issues surrounding undocumented immigrants in Texas is crime. Data from Cato reveals that 2 out of every 5 murders committed in Texas are attributed to undocumented immigrants, while the remaining cases involve native-born residents and legal immigrants. For other types of crimes, the majority are committed by native Texans. In July 2024, as reported by DW, U.S. authorities arrested 2 high-ranking leaders of the powerful Mexican Sinaloa drug cartel, Ismael Zambada Garcia, widely known as El Mayo, and Joaquin Guzman. Their capture highlights the persistent link between border security and organized crime, often cited in political debates about immigration. From the perspective of the White House, undocumented immigrants are frequently portrayed as a threat, accused of taking jobs away from American citizens. This perspective helped drive widespread support for President Trump's immigration policies, particularly among Republicans and his loyal base. Approximately 86% of Republican supporters, or nearly 9 out of 10, consider stricter measures to limit undocumented immigration a top priority for the United States. On the other hand, Democrats generally advocate for more lenient policies that make it easier for immigrants to enter and reside legally in the U.S. However, many Democrats also support stricter enforcement against businesses that hire workers without valid permits. The party has proposed a range of measures to address immigration, including granting legal status to millions of undocumented immigrants who have resided in the country for years. For more liberal Democrats, these policies often include pathways to citizenship for undocumented individuals currently living in the U.S., reflecting their belief in a more inclusive approach to immigration reform.